This is Mile High.
Do I want to tell the story or do I want to show the message?
You've got a lot of work to do between Mile High.
The time has come where we can know
we have a responsibility, an ethical and moral responsibility.
We have to do it better in order to move people along.
Up, down, inside out.
If you get your mind right, it is not. It is a receiver of thought. Because love is my first technique.
it's now time for the show.
Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles, and super thrilled to get rolling with this episode of the podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe. You never want to miss any Mile High tick. And most certainly you dial in for us to see you in September on higher ground, whatever altitude you are at. Rise up to 5,280 feet from Mile High 13. Don't let the 13 scare you. We are going to be doing Oceans 13. It's going to be like Vegas, and it's going to be fun. So the high rollers will be on higher ground. Dr. Ian Shtulman is our guest, and he is going to be part of the pediatric panel at Mile High, which I am so thrilled about to have that this calendar year. Dr. Ian, we're just going to dive right in, and I want to ask you, what are some of the pediatric concerns that you see that really get you ticked off? And what I mean is things that happen with medical, the medical profession is saying, that you can't go to a chiropractor before. These are what parents are being told. You're just like, how are parents told this? What are the things that really get, under your skin?
When I was first in practice, I used to spend a lot more time angrier than I do now. And I think it's so easy to get angry and feel like it's an us versus them sort of conversation. Mm-hmm. And the thing that switched it for me was realizing that medicine by its nature is the diagnosis and treatment of disease. Mm-hmm. And there is nothing about medicine that is the promotion, maintenance, or restoration of health. And so when you recognize that everything they view is through the lens of disease treatment, and what we focus on is the restoration of the connection between innate intelligence and being able to fully express throughout our body so we can better adapt to the world, we've realized that we're not really competing. Mm-hmm. I think what that did was it took that energy off of it, and I started to see the medical profession, a little bit more of a sympathetic light. And it's like, oh, you guys are doing the best you can, but you're in a flawed philosophical paradigm. Mm-hmm. You're in a very limited paradigm. And the reason why we get in trouble in healthcare is because we're handing over all of healthcare to a treatment model that is focused on disease, not health. And what that did was it made it so that it became less of like me fighting with medical providers and more about me connecting with medical providers and educating them on what it is that we do, and seeing that we're not trying to, provide an alternative for medical care, but we're trying to provide something that regardless of somebody's medical care, they can still benefit from being well adjusted. And so in that moment, when I started connecting with OBs, with midwives, with physical therapists, with acupuncturists, with pediatricians, you name it, I've connected with and I've referred patients back and forth with. It became less about trying to fight and argue and more about how do we collaborate to make sure that, they're getting their medical care should they need it, but they're also making sure that they're well adjusted and free of subluxation. And I found that coming from a place of, empathy and understanding their kind of flawed philosophy gave me the power to step in and educate them and open up opportunities for their patients to receive chiropractic care where they otherwise weren't having that opportunity because the medical providers were just so closed off to it. So. Mm-hmm. To me, I think that's was more productive for my practice. And then my practice grew exponentially by referrals from other providers.
Excellent. Excellent. And that's a really important discernment, is that it's two different ladders as
Yeah.
compared that it's competing ladders. And at the same time, there are things that, when we're told to, the patients come in and tell us, there's sometimes like, oh boy, how could you have been told that?
Yeah.
And then you're in the realm of, bringing them, to look at things differently, or saying, hey, get on this ladder. Now, how did you end up with a pediatric and perinatal focus?
It was it was my passion ever since hearing Dr. Jeannie Ohm speak at
Mm.
when I was in first quarter at Life,
Hmm.
and I decided that that's what I was going to do. And I graduated and I opened up a practice. And at the time, opening up a practice, my focus was anybody and everybody who would come in is welcome to come be a patient. But while I was talking to that 55-year-old trucker, I was talking to them about, hey, we're adjusting your pelvis. Yes, that's going to help with the back pain that brought you in, but guess what? If this pelvis isn't moving well in a pregnant mom, it's going to affect the birth process, and it's going to affect baby's position. And so every conversation that I had was about the subluxation that we're seeing in their body and how it relates to either the pregnant women in their lives, the children in their lives, or how the chronicity of the subluxation being there since their childhood has been a constant factor in their quality of life. So I was
Hmm.
always talking about pregnant and pediatric. It was just the main focus of everything that I did, even if the person wasn't pregnant or having have a child. And what that did was that energy just made it so that 55-year-old trucker was like, oh, my neighbor's pregnant. I should tell her about this. Oh, my nephew, should do this. And it just started to build and build and build that way. So, we talk about like laser focus and having a mission and knowing exactly what you do and why you do it. That doesn't mean that's the only people that you take care of, but everything is lived through the filter of like family wellness for me. And
Hmm.
and that's just what grew it from the start.
Hmm. Now, you, if I, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're Life University Graduate Philosophy Distinction, Diplomate in Pediatrics, Perinatal Care Focus, Freestanding Birth Center, you're a CE speaker, faculty of the ICPA. Care, with all of that, how do you coordinate all of that, live all that, and also run your office?
Uh, you know, it wasn't all of those things at once. And I think
Ah.
that's one of the things that's really important is I've been in practice 14 years, even though it feels like I just graduated. And I still consider myself one of the young docs. And then I'm slowly realizing, that, like my new associate isn't the same generation. And I'm like, oh, wait, I guess I'm not that young anymore. But it started off as just like opening my doors, making ends meet, connecting with the community, building a practice, getting to a point where I'm sustainable, building relationships with providers, starting to expand my study, advancing my certification level with the ICPA, uh, um, you know, building more of practice, starting to teach CE classes for my state organization, the Florida Chiropractic Society, starting to network with student organizations and share my passion with these groups on campus. And then gradually it started to build into, hey, I did well with the Florida Chiropractic Society. Now Ohio wants me to speak, or now the
Mhm.
ICPA wants me to speak. So I think sometimes it's so hard for students or new docs when they first graduate. They see people in the profession and they see all of these things and they think, oh, in order to be successful, I need to do all of these things. And it's not the
Mhm.
case,
Mhm.
right? Larry Markson used to talk about be, do, have. In order to be successful, you have to first be the type of person that's going to be successful. You have to be
Mhm.
passionate, you have to be committed, you have to be disciplined. Uh, and then from there, you have to do the things. I advanced my studies through the ICPA. I started speaking more and more, kind of honing my craft and getting better at how I communicate what I do. And that opened new doors, and it grew and it grew and it grew. So if you're out there in practice and you want to be on stage at Mile High, you want to speak for like the ICPA, start small and do good work consistently, and gradually get better and better and better. And all those doors will start to open up as a result of the hard work. Nothing that I've accomplished is just by chance. It's or I should say, people talk about luck, right? I think like luck is when opportunity meets preparation. I've been very lucky, but it's because I was prepared for those opportunities when they showed up. And so work on your expertise of the philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic. The art, by the way, is not just technique, it's also how we communicate what it is that we do. And gradually build and grow yourself from that point, because we need more people who are out there sharing this message, not just other chiropractors, but the public as a whole.
Love it. Love it. Now you mentioned Mile High, and this is either your third or fifth time being at Mile High. I've lost count. Attendee and speaking, you've done both, or being on a panel too. What do you love about Mile High?
The thing that I love about Mile High is getting to connect with like-minded colleagues. Chiropractic is a profession where the vast majority of us practice out on an island, right? We go to work every day, we serve our communities well, and we interact with each other on social media, but that's a very different experience than being together, being connected. And COVID is really what led me to come out to Mile High, right? Is I just felt this sense of, gosh, we need to get together, right? I need to be around chiropractors. I need to be around the people who are in the trenches every day serving their communities. And when I got out there, yes, I love the speakers. Yes, I love the breakout sessions. Yes, I love the learning and doing all that. But the hallway conversations, the standing around watching people communicate and adjust each other, being around that group of people who so uniquely understand the challenges that we face and the passions that we have. There's very few places in the profession that have that sort of camaraderie that I think is so important. So that's one of the reasons why I keep coming back to Mile High.
I got to tell you, that's what I hear every time. I put painstaking attention of having stellar speakers, because I want real content and I want them aligned with certain values. And no one ever says the speakers. I mean, I know they like the speakers, and also speakers always bring their A game, but they always say they love being around the community and the people, and it's great. It's great to hear that.
But think about this, right? If it weren't for the speakers putting on, because listen, we've all been to events where the speakers are just not great. And it doesn't foster the same energy and excitement and camaraderie. You just want to all right, let me sign out of my CE and let me go home. That's not the case, right? Mile High is the type of place where the room is full from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then people are hanging out afterwards and in between because the speakers create the energy, right? Or I should say, because your team has created the context for those speakers to be so amazing and so not just interesting in their content, but exciting and professional, that it takes that and now it spills over into the hallways, right? So yes, I'm sure people talk a lot about that camaraderie and the connection. None of it would happen if it wasn't for the work that your team did to put together such an amazing program year in, year out.
Well, yes, you're right, and thank you. And I love that the Arnaud Bernier talked to me about this, how the container of the whole experience is vital. So I'm really glad that does, as you chose the word, spill over into an experience for people. And it was just not something I anticipated or expected. And it's a great thing, And by the way, you mentioned hallway talks. And Jack Borley, you've probably seen him say this occasionally, that it's that talks in the hallway, he always makes jokes about it, that they're the best ones. So and so, going back, that why is the ICPA important? I'm a big fan of the ICPA. You often have a speaker or two from the ICPA. We did the Mile High Summit one year to benefit the Mile High, to benefit the ICPA. But for the people that are watching, listening, and may rub shoulders with people when they're at Mile High and talk to them, why is the ICPA important?
So for 40 years, right, we're now in the 40th anniversary of the formation of the
Wow.
ICPA.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
we're having a 40th anniversary gathering next year in 2026. So it's super exciting. But for 40 years, ICPA has really led the way as a place for everybody who believes chiropractic should be available for children, for pregnant moms, for families, for wellness, that this is the place that you can come, regardless of your school, regardless of the technique you practice, regardless of whether you're cash versus insurance. It doesn't matter how you practice. If you believe kids and pregnant moms deserve access to chiropractic care, then the ICPA is a place for you. And we need that sort of connection where we all come together, right? For too often, a lot of these organizations end up starting to try to compete with themselves, or they're for-profit type of things that are focused more on growth in their own right, where the ICPA stands firmly in the same way as it has for 40 years as a nonprofit for the entire profession, focused on educating chiropractors on how to more effectively provide chiropractic care and subluxation correction for pregnant and pediatric patients, to develop and fund and perform research, both practice-based research, case studies, as well as kind of organized proactive studies on the value of subluxation correction in these populations, as well as through things like the Pathways magazine, a beacon of public education for the chiropractic family wellness lifestyle. So there's no organization like it. It's a place where I think everybody can come together, regardless of how you practice. If you recognize how important it is for chiropractors and pregnant moms to have access to care, then the ICPA is a place that you should support.
Excellent, excellent, and I agree wholeheartedly. That's one of the things that the Mile High crew here did, which was impact the state organizations' positions that children should be able to have care as a standard of care, for adjustment of subluxation, just because in and of themselves, a subluxation is a detriment to someone striving for well-being. And I know that's a big focus of what the ICPA stands for. And there should be no thing that limits the ability of kids to get care, regardless of symptom status or case presentation. As long as they have a subluxation or less than healthy nerve system, they can benefit from care for their spine by a doctor of chiropractic. With that being said, where do people get started with the ICPA? You and I know that there's, in general, very little pediatrics in chiropractic school, not anywhere near enough.
Yeah.
And so if someone wants to learn more, we don't talk about any particular chiropractic school, but that's simply a profession-wide thing, and some do lead the way better than others. If people want to say, I really didn't get enough skill sets in this area, where would they start with the ICPA?
So first off, even if you don't have a passion for providing care to pregnant or pediatric populations, but you recognize it's important and it should be available for others, you can start off by just joining and becoming a member. That money goes towards funding research and public education and supporting chiropractors in their rights to be able to provide care to these populations. But if you want to start taking care, or if occasionally you find a pregnant or pediatric patient in your office, start by getting Webster certified. It's the first class in the ICPA training series. in the certification series. One of the instructors, Dr. Jen Santos, will be speaking from the main stage this year at Mile High. You had Dr. Steph Libbs last year, Dr. Pam Stone the year before. So you've got, 3 out of the 4 of them that have already been on stage recently. But that's a great place to start. Get Webster certified. It doesn't just give you the technique aspect of how to provide care to these populations. It also gives you a greater understanding of the impact that subluxation makes on the internal environment for baby developing, on the biomechanics in preparation for birth, on the transition postpartum for both mom and baby, and gives you a better understanding of what these moms are going through as they're navigating pregnancy in a medical model that's focused on disease treatment. So at a bare minimum, if you want to take care of these populations, go and get Webster certified. And then if you find a passion for that, go on, right? Dr. Shannon Good, who's going to be on the pediatric panel, teaches the intro to pediatric adjusting class. So there's so many classes and electives and opportunities within the ICPA for you to do, not just continuing education, but further your expertise, that it's a great place to start.
Excellent, excellent. I so appreciate you sharing that. Now, with that being said, what do you teach in the ICPA so people know a little bit more about that and you?
I have a 4-hour class that is focused on how do you effectively communicate chiropractic in an ethical manner, right? How do you build a practice by communicating what we do with patients, with the public, and with providers? So you can build relationships with medical providers or non-chiropractic providers and have them see the value of subluxation corrective care. So that class, it's a 4-hour class. It's relatively easy to take, but it really is about how do we take the principles of what it is that we do and break it down into something that's concise and clear for people to understand so that they take action on it, right? You've been taking care of kids for decades, right? The easiest part of chiropractic care is helping people get well. You find the subluxation, you adjust the subluxation, you leave it alone, and people get better because that's just how chiropractic works. That's how innate intelligence is able to express itself. The hardest part of that is getting an opportunity to do so, to have a parent of a newborn hand over their baby and say, can you please adjust them? For somebody to come in 30 weeks in their pregnancy, preparing for their first baby that they've waited years for them to lay down and let you adjust them. Developing that trust, having them understand the value of what it is that we do, in a way that they choose not only to get adjusted, but to continue to choose chiropractic for them and their family going forward. That's the idea of my class. How do you take the technical skills that you learn from Webster and Dr. Shannon's class and now apply it to educating your community and your practice and other providers about what we do?
Excellent, excellent. Let me ask you one last thing. I know we have to wrap up here. And I'll ask this one last thing, and then we'll look forward to seeing you on Higher Ground September 25th to 28th for Mile High 13. And man, people are messaging me how excited they are about that theme to be Ocean's 13. It's going to be, extravagant, Vegas style area. So it'll be fun. Now, with that being what you teach, what's one tip or something you'd recommend in that area that people should be aware of?
In the area of like communication?
Yeah.
So
I know there's a lot, but one thing?
I think keep it simple. We tend to want to compensate for this kind of, I don't want to say inferiority complex, but this sense that we're not good enough or that we're not, we don't know enough of the details, right? I see a lot of chiropractors get afraid of getting a question that they're not sure of, or they don't reach out to medical providers because they're afraid they're going to get a question that they can't answer. And I remember distinctly, I was a couple of years into practice, and I connected with some friends of mine who I was in college with, and they graduated medical school, they were in their residency, they were doing all things, and they asked me about pediatric chiropractic, and I decided to go into this whole thing about the autonomic nervous system and the
Right.
craniocervical neurobiomechanics. And I tried to make it so complicated because I felt like I needed to impress them. I felt like I needed to say it in medical words in order for them to get it. And they just kind of stared at me. And I realized like they couldn't quite remember what the autonomic nervous system was, right? Because they're practicing at the time, they were practicing in urology. So, what do they have to do in their day-to-day life dealing with things like the vagus nerve? So I find that a lot of chiropractors try to make it more complicated than it needs to be. And you just don't. Listen, here's the deal. Dennis Perman had a great line when I first started chiropractic about there's 4 points to understand chiropractic. The body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism. It's designed to stay healthy. The nervous system regulates and coordinates all function in the body, allowing us to better perceive and adapt to an ever-changing world. Subluxation, as a result of accumulated trauma in our life, causes the spine to shift and interfere with the nervous system, making it so that our body can't regulate as well as it needs to, and that causes us to get sick and have dis-ease. Chiropractors find those subluxations, correct them using a gentle adjustment, allowing the nervous system to work better and letting the body heal better. Like it really doesn't need to be complicated. Now, yes, understand all the science, but don't feel that you need to overload people, because the more you do that and the more confused they get, the more they leave feeling unsure of you. So anytime somebody leaves confused, it's a speed bump that gets in the way of them continuing care.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And confused consumers don't buy, and so to keep it simple, and there's a lot of S to that. Keeping it simple is absolutely key. Well, I'm super thrilled that you'll be sharing your wisdom on that panel, the pediatric panel, ICPA panel at Mile High. I'm excited to see you out here again. One of these times we're going to have to do a skiing trip, so we combine a philosophy night with skiing. It just hasn't happened yet, but we'll have to do that. And again, I really want to thank you for all you do, the clarity that you bring to chiropractors, that the clarity you help people shift their communication to. And I'm really grateful for all that you do for the ICPA and chiropractic as a whole, as well as in your community town. So thank you for, being one of the few. So I appreciate
you, Danny. Thank you for every opportunity that you've provided, not only to me and the ICPA instructors and the chiropractic profession as a whole. We're all better off because you're here.
Oh, thank you so much, my friend. Well, we'll see you in just a couple months, and keep changing. Everybody who's listening, keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic, especially kids and pregnant moms. All right, and we'll see you on higher ground in September. Rise up to milehigh.com is where you can get all the details.